Welcome to another episode of Discograffiti's wildly in-depth Beach Boys series and Your Dreams Come True, where Brian Wilson freaks like you and me get our chance to delve deep into the barely believable history and prodigious discography of my favorite band of all time, and also coincidentally the best, along with a slew of over 50 top-shelf guests, ranging from musicians inspired by their work, family members, documentary directors, songwriting collaborators, Beach Boys authors, producers, touring band members, and for good measure, some of the Beach Boys themselves. I'm your host, Dave Gebroe, and special thanks goes out to co-producers Chuck Granata, Dennis Dyken, and Mark Freed, without whom this series would not have happened. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on the career of legendary producer and studio head Lenny Waronker, along with our special guest, the man himself, Lenny Waronker. Initially intended solely as a deep dive discussion on Dyke Parks' majestic debut record Song Cycle, the first album Lenny ever produced, this, of course, turned into something else entirely, a 5.5-hour career-spanning interview with one of the kindest, most honest and vulnerable human beings who ever set foot in the music industry. Initially also intended as part of our Beach Boys and Your Dreams Come True series, it felt far too important not to stand on its own. This is part 4, focusing on the first album that Lenny ever produced, side 2 of Dyke Parks' legendary debut LP, Song Cycle. Lenny once said, "To be associated with Song Cycle even now is more important to me than 99% of the hit records I've been involved with." Parts 2 and 4 are an absolute dream come true for fans of this record. Here are just a few of the many things that Lenny discusses with Discograffiti in this podcast. The track on the LP that Van Dyke referred to as like stepping from one kind of music into something else. How Randy Newman feels about Nilsson Sings Newman, according to Lenny. A wildly divergent digression during which I discover the very direct link between the Beau Brummels and Ricky Lee Jones. An overview of Song Cycle's ad campaign, one of the most memorable and least conventional music industry experiments of all time. An in-depth deep dive on every song off side 2 of Song Cycle. The early days of getting Ry Cooder and Randy Newman's careers off the ground at Warner Brothers. Whether or not Van Dyke invented MTV a decade before its time, and an in-the-moment eulogy for Brian Wilson, who had died only days before the taping of this episode. And away we go then! Since we last spoke a few days ago, you were bowled over by the amount of research I had done, and it set a fire under you, and you are trying to outdo me this week.
No, after listening, I can't outdo you. The thing I picked up when I was really listening was that a lot of the things that I wanted and didn't think we got enough of, I was wrong. You know, the piano stuff or the keyboard stuff is amazing. And I still don't understand or don't remember what we were doing to get those different sounds, because a lot of it was Fender Rhodes. It wasn't a particularly sophisticated time in terms of keyboard sounds, and synthesizers were just starting to come in. But the piano is leading that orchestra in a way. It's wonderful.
Well, at the time, in lieu of the synthesizer, you had the concept that Van Dyke definitely carried over from Phil Spector and Brian Wilson of taking several instruments, combining them, and making a mystery other instrument.
Yeah, I love doing that. I learned about that probably listening to jazz records. And my father talking about different combos. If you put 3 or 4 instruments together and they were the right instruments, you could make an unbelievable sound.
Yeah, something unreplicable.
Yeah. And so when I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, how in the hell did we do that? Because I know that the only tricks we had, really, that I can think of is different kinds of tape, delay and echo. And the fun part was always, okay, well, what are we going to make this sound like, you know? And what should it be?
And what does it look like, obviously?
Yeah. Van Dyke, it was always fun because he was capable of, not only writing notes and songs and doing all the great things that he did, but he was also very smart about the engineering aspect of the record.
I bet he calls you now, because what happened yesterday is going to put him right back in 66 to work his way through it. He has no choice but to go through it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So that's going to bring him, I would imagine, at least to your metaphorical doorstep.
I don't know. Van Dyke's a unique person.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the idea of him having any bone to pick with you is ludicrous. So is there anything on the first side that struck you that you want to revisit momentarily before we start moving our way through side two?
Not really. I think if I'm coming across more as somebody that was there rather than somebody who was intimately involved in the whole thing, I think I came across more as an observer, because you're dealing with somebody who had enormous musical instincts and schooled. He knew his stuff and his vocabulary, which I had been listening to it, forgot. There's so much wordplay going on, and there's jokes going on too. He's, having fun with it, and at times very serious. But his lingo, which is absolutely his, I don't know of anybody else that talks quite like Van Dyke. And his knowledge of the language, I think, was also something that it's funny because we were so much into the making and the arrangement and so fearful of the voice that we pushed it as far back as, you could. I mean, I think I might have said at one point, these words are great and need to be heard.
That's the big mind fuck of the record, Lenny, because for me, when I listen to it, the words call so much attention to themselves because they're so fucking crazy and so thought out, and no one else, unless you had James Joyce writing your lyrics, no one else is going to be able to write like that. And yet, every single song on the record, except for the first and last song, they are obscured behind all kinds of trickery. So was there an aspect of his capability with the pen where he didn't believe in himself, or he thought he'd go over people's heads, and so he was trying to erase it a little bit?
I don't think so. I think he stood by his songs.
Then why not have a lyric sheet and simultaneously scrub the lucidity away?
I don't know. It's first real record. He didn't like his voice, which is not unique at all. Most great singers have problems with their voice, hearing their voice back. So I think it was that simple,
You know what's funny? You know whose voice he most sounds like? And it never hit me until right now. Mike Love. Ironically, Mike Love, the pinched adenoidal kind of thing that they both have in common, although obviously they do two very different things with that instrument.
Yeah.
He actually sounds like Mike Love.
I don't know about that. I'll have to think about it. But I do know that some of the problem with the vocals was our insecurity, I guess. And we were rookies. That was the first album I ever...
Yeah.
And his too.
The first song on side two, Public Domain. Here's what Van Dyke says about, because his voice is going through the Leslie Cabinet treatment there. And as regards that, Van Dyke said, Lenny encouraged me. He was a willing accomplice, though he remarked years later to me that you got the criticism, meaning Van Dyke did. Really, I didn't think too much about the vocalist. It didn't matter to me. Now, the takeaway for me there is him saying in third person, the vocalist, as if he's disattached himself entirely.
It's great.
All right. That concludes your free sneak peek into today's bonus episode. If you want to hear the rest of it, just visit patreon.com/discograffiti and either purchase this podcast by itself for $4, or better yet, subscribe at the major tier and get access to Discograffiti's 3 weekly episodes. That's Friday's main episode, the Sunday Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. That's our podcast within a podcast featuring Patreon members as guests and your Tuesday bonus episode. Please keep in mind this is entirely how I support my wife and 7-year-old son, so don't risk feeling badly about yourself by not supporting Discograffiti. Become a member so you don't miss a single thing at patreon.com/Discograffiti.